Well, hey everybody, it's time to look at another action camera, and this one sports 4K at 60 frames per second. Now, there's only a couple of cameras that actually do that when it comes to action cameras. One of them is the first one that ever came out, which was the Yi 4K Plus camera. Then there's the GoPro Hero 6 that shoots in 4K 60 frames a second. The SJ8 Pro that shoots 4K 60 frames per second. And now this camera by a company called Dliuz. Dliuz, 4K 60 frames per second. This one's not using the Umbrella chipset. This one is using a Allwinner chipset, but it's not the V3 that you've heard about before. This is a new Allwinner chipset. We're going to do a nice little review, in-depth review of this. We're going to check resolution of 4K 60 frames a second, 4K 30 frames a second, 1080p at 30, 1080p at 60. I want to check out the image stabilization because this one claims to have image stabilization up to 4K 30 frames per second, 3-axis gyro. So we're going to check that out, and that's coming right up. All right, here's the packaging for the Dliuz 4K 60 frames per second action camera. The box that it comes in, here's some of the specifications. So let's go ahead and open it up, see what comes in the box. Looks like we have the action camera in its waterproof case. A little different with a white colored waterproof case. Let's see, a little lock button. Now the action camera looks a little bit like the SJ7 Star in that it has an aluminum outer shell to it. Has a 1/4-20 screw on the bottom, battery drawer, 170-degree wide-angle lens. Anyway, you've got a nice screen on the back. Looks like you've got a power button here, shutter button there. Oh, the battery drawer is a little hard to open up. This one comes with a 1200 milliamp per hour battery. So we should get some long life out of this. The drawer is a little finicky. Wow, drawer is very finicky. I don't know if it's the hinge or the closing and opening mechanism, but definitely difficult. Battery and then the SD card slots on the inside of the battery drawer. So let's see if we can get this closed again. A little finicky drawer. Looks like we've got some sticky pads, another mount, actually 2 mounts, lens cleaning cloth, some straps, a little skeleton housing for the camera, 1 GoPro mount accessory, and a USB to micro USB to charge, and then the user manual. So let's see how fast that this guy turns on. Takes a little bit. Now it does use the Allwinner chipset in this one, and like I've had some experience with the Allwinner before the V3, and that was in the MG Cool Explorer Pro and the Explorer Pro 2. And it's not that it's a bad chipset, it's just that it's, to me, in my opinion, it's a lower grade than what you would get with the Novatech 96660. But this is their new, this one's sporting the V5-DV100 chipset, which is supposed to be capable of 4K 30 frames a second. Now this camera is supposed to have electronic image stabilization up to 4K 30 frames a second, not available at 4K 60 frames a second. And you know, there's only one way to test the quality of a camera. And you know, unboxing a camera and all that, that's real nice, but we want to see image quality and audio. So that's coming right up. All right, 1080p, 30 frames per second. Curious to see what the image is going to look like in the computer, because while I'm walking with this, just looking at the back screen, I do see some movements of every footstep that I take. So that would lead me to think that if it does have image stabilization, it's going to be one of the first generations of image stabilization that came out with the action cameras, the little 3-axis gyro. Alright, 1080p, 60 frames per second on this Dliuz 4K action camera. Let's see, image on the back of the screen looks nice. I see a little bit of variation from blue on the back screen to this blue, even though there's no variation in the sky. Let's see. Looking to see if I see any purple fringing around that tree. So it's supposed to support electronic image stabilization on all resolutions up to 4K 30 frames per second. And I'm just doing this handheld. And this is 2.7K 30 frames per second. Shooting 4K 30 frames a second with this new action camera I've never heard of before, the Deleuze. It's supposed to have electronic image stabilization up to 4K 30 frames a second. So just handheld, walking with it, seeing how the image stabilization is. Now, one of the neat features about this camera is that it's supposed to offer 4K at 60 frames per second. Now, it's a Allwinner chip that is supposed to be a new version of the Allwinner, which I've never been very fond of before, because I believe the MG Cool Explorer Pro and Pro 2 had the Allwinner. And you know, it's okay. It wasn't great image quality, but let's see what this new Allwinner chip looks like. Get into some direct sunlight right there. Okay, this is 4K 60 frames per second. No imagization at 60 frames per second, but don't add any gimbal to that. See how there's a frame doubling going on. On the menu settings, it has no option for auto low light, so we'll see how it compensates when we go inside. Daughter's fish look like. So at the end of the day, what are my thoughts about the Dliuz 4K 60 frames per second action camera? Well, it's got some potential, but it's also got some issues. I think that the resolution quality in 1080p was acceptable. I think the 2.7K was all right. The 4K at 30, you know, let's first talk about 4K at 60 frames per second. When you saw in the video what I had to do, because it was like way out of sync with the audio, and usually that's a clue that the frame rate is doing a little bit of a fluctuation. Now, this is just my opinion, but I think that this is interpolated 4K, number one, and second off, that the 60 frames per second is not an accurate 60 frames per second. I think there's a lot of frame doubling going on with this. The audio was okay, it was acceptable to me. It wasn't nothing outrageously great. So all in all, I mean, what do I think? I think for $140, $139.99, are there better options for you? Now, my last camera review was of the Firefly 8 SE, and it does not offer image stabilization at 4K. Although it's 4K 30 frames a second, is very, very nice. And its stabilization at 1080p 60 is very nice. So you've got stabilization at 1080 60. Stabilization on this really needs to be addressed firmware wise. Now, there is one thing that I find irritating. That you see this video file that ends with 91901A, then it takes a JPEG, then it's a repeated video file of 91901A again. Upon a little further investigation about these double video files, so let's look at this one right here, for example. Now this one is 23406A MP4. So that one is 124 megabytes. Now you have a JPEG image. The next one that is the same video file, this one's only 5.8 megabytes. So we go down to properties. We'll take a look at some of the details of this. And this is only shooting in 480 by 270. And at 24 frames a second. So I don't know why it does that when this other file, its details are basically 2.7K, 30 frames a second. So don't know why it's doing that, but that's the difference between these video files, where it gives you the original video file, it gives you a snapshot JPEG real quick, and then it gives you a smaller resolution file. But either way, it still takes up extra space. Stabilization. If it does have stabilization, it's probably one of the weakest stabilizations that I've seen on an action camera claiming stabilization. You saw in the 4K footage, 2.7K, 1080p at 60 or 30 frames, you could see, because I was just hand holding it like I normally do, and you could see all sorts of wobbles in the video footage. So that's a little bit problematic for me. Another con, and I don't know if it's just this camera that I got or if it's all of these, but this battery drawer deal, to get that open, it's not a simple push on that little arrow right there and pull it open. I mean, you have to fight this drawer to get the battery cover to open up and to get your SD card out. Thumbs up, thumbs down, which way we're gonna go with this. I think there's better options. By the way, as a quick little reminder, do not forget that I've got the dash cam giveaway going on. That's gonna happen on the 31st of this month, and I'll put a link to it right up here. Don't comment in this video for the dash cam giveaway. Comment in the original video, put hashtag and enter to enter your chance to win that dash cam for free. And it's a worldwide giveaway, so wherever you are in the world, I will ship it to you. It's free to enter. I'll do a random name generator, do a video. I'll post it at 12 noon Central Standard Time in the United States. If you're not a subscriber, subscribe to the channel so you get notifications, especially when you click that little bell right here. You click the bell and then you get a notification every time I upload a video so that you'll know when the giveaway video takes place of who the winner is, and also the next video that I post up. I hope you guys have yourself a great day, and until the next review, bye.